What's going on?
What's happening?
Your man's Ken Jones.
Yes, sir. David Jefferson.
Yes, Lord. We're back with some things that we need to talk about.
That's right. Calculated conversation, man.
Yes. And we ain't gonna bury the lead. Let y'all know this week we really running with the theme of defining yourself.
Right.
And in order to do any defining of self, you need to figure out the things that you value. So
That's right.
for this episode, we're gonna get to talking these core values, personal value lists. How you feel about that, brother?
Man, I love it, man. I think that's the most important conversation, when it comes to really understanding how to be more intentional as you maneuver through life.
Yeah.
Having that foundation and also being able to, I think, unlearn and maybe redefine an old foundation to a new one.
Yeah.
Is necessary because it just gives you the guidance you need to create the right boundaries. It gives you the guidance to know what you're doing this for exactly, and what you're not doing this for.
Right.
Things you will sacrifice for, things you will not. Things you can barter on a little bit, things you got to stand firm on.
Yeah.
Because I think those are some of the concepts that kind of throw people off when they don't have a clear system that they can refer to when it's time to make decisions.
Right.
And we need to have that clarity so that we know exactly what we're supposed to do and exactly what we not.
So we talk values. Does that mean money? Does the values? Is this like things we like about ourselves? Like,
right.
How would you define a value?
I think, it's a lot of definitions for value. I think that ultimately, it's something that you'll do anything for to protect.
Okay.
Which is why you have to be careful what it is, right? Because if it's money, it means you'll do anything for money. If it's sex or women or men, it means you'll do anything for that.
Yeah.
If it's materials or high designer fashion or something, it means you'll do anything for that. Popularity, it means you'll do anything for it, right?
Yes.
And typically, things of that nature means you don't have no boundaries outside of just that. And so it's easy to get caught up. It's easy to get yourself in quote unquote a pickle, you know what I mean? By not having anything else to define your purpose by. Yeah. Those things are too simple to try to build a life around them. Yeah. And so when you think about values, I think about things that I'm willing to do anything to protect, anything to create.
Yes.
And so it makes me think that if it's that important, then I have to make sure that the right things are up there that I'm protecting. Yes. And that's when I start thinking more about peace.
Yeah.
Peace is, I tell people all the time, peace is at the top of my value system, right? I will do anything to protect that, and I'm okay with that, right? And I can't do anything without that. I'm useless if I'm not a man at peace.
Yeah.
I can't help myself, I can't help my people or my community or my family or my friends. I really can't help anybody because I have a war within myself. Right. I can't help a woman. I can't be in a relationship. And so I have to have my own level of peace first. That's why I think that should be at the top of my system.
Yeah.
And then I have, another value of mine, I want to say it's community in a way. It's probably deeper than community, but I think it's more being in alignment. It's more, my value is, a big value I have is alignment and purpose.
Yeah.
Which means that the things that I do typically have to be somehow associated with my purpose, which keeps me in alignment. In general, my purpose with people, my purpose with my career, my purpose with myself, or just my purpose overall with my, my calling in life, what I'm designed to create and bring to the table. So it's things like that, bro, that I consider to be, just examples of what a value system could be.
Yeah.
And, how you protect them and how you, I think, foster them and create those, depends a lot on how well you know yourself.
And that's something that, when I think of values, it really falls into the line of what do you believe?
Mm-hmm.
Not what you think is right.
Right.
It's what do you believe?
Yeah.
Right. In the way, if I was to sit and say that fitness is my passion.
Right.
Or I'm getting chunky in the mids,
Right.
That's not, I don't actually believe that.
Right.
Right. If I talk about, being a supportive partner, but I'm never able to communicate effectively with my partner and actually be motivated to help that person flourish and thrive in whatever they're doing.
Right.
And I'm just saying what sounds nice. That's not actually my belief. And you operate from your beliefs.
Right.
And so one of the things that I'll throw out to the people out there is if you take time to think about your behaviors, your patterns, right? What your day-to-day, how you show up in different situations, right? You can kind of get a taste for what you value.
Yes, right.
And it may be, you may be looking good, you dress, right? Your appearance may be something that you value very high. Vanity is of high value, and there's no knock on whatever your thing is. There's people that get up and they do go to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning. That's their health is a priority, right? Those are the things that you take in, and if you kind of do your assessment, you can look into that and figure out some of what it is that drives you. It also helps inform, as you mentioned, your decision making, right? It helps you to know what you believe right and wrong are.
Right.
It helps to it's easier to make decisions once you do understand what it is you value. Because if you think about big businesses, right, you think about the way that they market stuff. They have, like Apple will not let their phones be used by the bad guy in a movie. That's because one of their values is it's the trend, it's what's happening, and it's not a bad thing. So they're always aligning themselves with the good guy.
Right.
And even if it's paying, it doesn't matter what it's paying. We're not doing it because it doesn't align with this system that we have in place.
Absolutely.
And so that's a way to kind of think about this. It's something that you're not going to waver from.
That's right.
As you move through. Yeah. Again, it's easy to make a decision once you know your value system or easier. Let me not say easy, but it's easier to be able to make that decision because you have this thing that's a simple yes or no. Does this put me closer to the vision of myself that I see in my head, who I'm becoming, who I want to be.
Right.
And it's those type of assessments that you'll want to take. And one of the things, I guess, bouncing off of that in the terms of, I said sometimes where, if you've not done this before and ever sat down and tried to pencil out some of that, it might be a little bit confusing. And there's a ton of resources out there. You can look online right quick and Google a values list just to see words that are put out or sentences that they will show you kind of as reference. I'll mention some later here in this discussion here, but taking some of the time to figure this out is not I'm going to spend 10 minutes this evening getting to the bottom of this. You had to figure out what your value system was. You had to figure out what the ranking was, right?
Right.
What goes at the top, because you may have 20 things on that list.
Right.
20 things. But then it's what has the highest priority in those. And you have to be realistic with yourself. And I think that's one of the things in terms of when we get to defining ourselves, some of it's ugly.
Oh, yeah.
When we get to really looking at ourselves, not as the image of who we want to be, but who we are right now, and look at a lot of our patterns, our history, and so on, we get to see often it's that transition. And when you start recognizing, but if you're not taking inventory and actually listing this stuff out to be able to look at it, it's easy to keep tossing it in the back of your head, right? And so coming into the space, I definitely encourage people to take the time to start playing around with it. It might be a month that it takes you to get this list, probably even just penciled out. You may not even gotten to the categorizing this or hierarchy set up by that point, but it's not a rush. This is you figuring yourself out, and to not necessarily put a time limit on that. Now, yeah, if you want to attack this for 20 minutes a night for the next month, yeah, put you a plan in place. But this idea that you're going to have it figured out, especially if you've not done this before or started to play around with this, you're bringing in a lifetime of data stuff. You got to really sit back and think about situations and scenarios. What are the things that keep showing up? You know, what happens, as you said, if you're money motivated, is that in terms, is that a means to an end, or is that the end? So it's like, I'm going to do whatever, or is it money is going to allow me, because actually financial freedom is my thing, because I want to be able to travel. It's like getting into that understanding of what is driving that, or is it just having money for the sake of having money? Like, it's being able to really get specific. And I think that's where you're going to get the most out of an exercise such as trying to figure out your own personal value list. But you're also going to have something that you can refer to as your North Star when you do have bigger decisions to make and opportunities that present themselves that may seem great in the moment, but if you sit and see, where does this align? Where is it going to get you closer to what it is that you are trying to do, or not? You being a person who goes out into the community, you do a lot of speaking. That's what one of your drives. That's something that you do. Now, if somebody came and said, "Hey, I want you to work on submarines," that's not in a lot. No matter what ticket they threw at you, that's not what I do. Get you any closer to what you're trying to do as the overall goal. And of course, that's an extreme example, but there could be something where somebody pulls you to the side and say, "Hey, look, you stop speaking. I'll just have you write speeches for this other person to be the face of it." Oh, that might sound good. Like, oh, I'm kind of still getting to get my thoughts out, but also I'm not being able to speak. That's not going to be spoken in the way that I'll be able to speak this from my experience. So that's something that wouldn't necessarily tie in with your end goal. And it's having your value list broken down and understood. You stand on the square that you stand on, and you don't waver. That piece, that would create disruption for you being put in a situation. You might sign that contract, get a nice little bag to start with, but you wouldn't be at peace in your soul, because what you want to do is be in front of the people, having the conversations with the people. And that's like an example of where it could be there and it may seem great, but that money in that moment is going to now disrupt his top value.
And then it looks like I'm putting money above, my true values. And another thing to also be conscious of is that as you start to study your values, I mean, you have to pay more attention to yourself and how you feel in any given circumstance. And you might actually find, once you pay attention, that your values aren't what you thought they are, depending on how your spirit is vibrating with that thought or that situation. And so a lot of things gonna have to be overhauled. A lot of things we thought were valuable, we're gonna find out are not. A lot of our what we thought were goals, were just means, right? I like the whole ideal about what is money for. I think if it's anything that bothered me the most, and not to a point to where I'm disrupted, but it's just, when you don't like to see something, you're like, I wish they would just break that down further. I so much hate to hear people talking about getting to a bag. I'm just like, what does that mean exactly? What do you do with the bag? Can we go a little bit deeper? Like, do you want vacations? Do you want free time? Like, do you want to travel, or is there a home you're looking for? We're not just sitting around with a bag though, so we're not going deep enough when we talk about that. Money is not, I just don't think it's a real value, man. I just don't believe it. I think people think it is, but I don't think truly, when you break down what happens when you get it, it's not a value unless you're not spending it.
That's it.
And so we just have to be more honest with who we are, and I think a good place for people to start, I say always start in your spirit and your soul with how you feel. I think paying attention to how you feel is going to be the biggest indicator of what's really for you and what's not for you. We have to get away from what's expected of us based off our environment. Get away from what we thought was normal. Get away from what everybody else is doing or what everybody else say is popular. Get away from whatever is easier and get closer to what's authentically actually you. And you start from that space and you start to build up, and then your value system should start to unveil itself. You don't really choose it, it actually chooses you. You just have to acknowledge what it is. And again, have a certain level of honesty about that, and then I think you'll get more in alignment. You'll start to get closer to a place of peace. And then the boundaries, because you have to have boundaries to protect those values. Your boundaries get easier to process because there's no question. For me personally, there's no question about what I will and won't do for money.
Yeah.
Or for popularity. There's certain things I just will not do.
Right.
And I really don't care how much they pay. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it's like, I be asking the kids in my mentorship.
Yeah.
I'm like, do y'all think that if I had a, like a older woman who wanted to buy me out, and pay me to be her little husband or whatever, like, would I do it? They like, nah, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. They be like, I would. And I'm saying, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So I get that. I talk to them about that, bro. And it's good to hear them start to discuss values and stuff. But, I let them know that to really get what you want out of life, to really get to the space you need to be in, to get to that place of alignment and that place of living life on your own terms, your value system has to be solid, and there has to be great boundaries to protect it. And after staying within that alignment and that consistency over a certain period of time through words and actions, you are bound to get everything that you want. It's just that, are you willing to go through the pressure of separating yourself and building your individuality so that you can lay yourself out in an authentic form and appreciate that no matter who says what or who's doing what, standing on your square, like you said.
Standing on the square. It's I think there's also this element, going in the way of what's right and what's wrong. And that goes back to that gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Your gut is going to tell you what's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been in situations where we had to make a decision, one that may have been right for us in that moment, right? But it wronged someone else.
Yeah.
And there's something to being able to understand and identify that type of tug and know that that's a moment of not being in alignment because you actually don't feel okay with this thing.
Right, exactly.
So even in a moment, because usually that's tied into money. Most times that's tied into money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's showing where that's you're telling you this ain't worth that.
Right.
And that's where you've got to look on some of those type of scenarios and situations in your life where you felt like, I did it because of X, Y, Z, but I didn't feel good about it. And you'll realize, I know I've got many examples where I was like, I something's telling me, but I'll figure this out.
Right.
And how many times this came back to slap me in my face?
Yeah.
Because I went against what that gut feeling of this isn't what you're actually in alive. There's things that you value, and no matter how much you may enjoy a person or enjoy a situation, you might enjoy that ice cream, but if you
lactose intolerant, you're done.
You're gonna be down bad. But in addition to that, because I think not all of us are running around with just these values that are outdated and aren't serving us.
Okay.
Some of the ways to be able to figure out some of these, some of the values that are beneficial and that drive you is to think about times that you've achieved something or a situation where you were overcome with joy, right? What other word did I put in there? Just an experience where you were satisfied with an outcome, and then break that down. What were you satisfied about? What was the joy coming from? I know off air I was mentioning getting a promotion. Yeah. That's a moment that people may be like, oh, if you work a 9 to 5, you got promoted up. And it's like, in that promotion, what was the excitement from? Is it the idea of more money? Is it the idea of more responsibility? Is it just an achievement? Like, which one of those? Like, I know one of my great things is like, I'm part achievement. It's not so much for pats on the back for me, but there's something I get out of having an idea, seeing if I can accomplish that thing and then accomplishing it.
Right.
And it's a lot of things that go on behind the scene that I don't speak about that are private little victories for me, right? There's education and learning, like my curiosity and learning. That is something in me that drives me very far, right? And I know that my value, I have to feel like I'm learning something, and that's in conversation. And so I don't care who you are. It's, if I can't have an exchange, that's why I'm not that good at small talk about pointless stuff, because I'm trying to get some type of interaction here that even if it isn't this grand mind-blowing thing, it's like, am I learning something about you as a person?
Right.
Am I able to get some information here in our exchange that's actually going to be a thing I think about later on versus the weather?
Right.
Versus a team I don't give nothing about. Like those aren't the things that necessarily get me going. So I understand that for me to stay in a conversation and not trail off, there's got to be some sense of I am learning something in this moment. And it doesn't have to be an educational fact, but it could just be about you as a person and part of your story and what you've got going. The amount of energy I get from people sharing what's working for them, I think about that often, like energized of hearing people talk about their success or their goal, their plan, and not just their goal, because people talk about what they want to do all day, but when I hear a person not just talking about their goal, but how they're going to get there with those actionable steps, you must, like, that's top tier, right? And so there's, I find also my ability to encourage, like that's a value of mine, is being able to pour into people. That's something that I definitely get a lot out of. It brings me a certain level of joy, and I don't get anything necessarily from it, right? It's not that like I'm not benefiting directly from that, although I am, because it is a moment of feeling like, passing on some game that I didn't necessarily get. I had to figure it out. So being able to pass that on, right? But I if y'all take time to sit down, write some of these things out, and even if it's not writing them out, just really think of them in detail, right? And what made that such a great moment? What made that experience something that locked into your head? And look at those. Then start looking at the patterns. Now bring up a couple of more and start to notice the consistencies, right? Start noticing the consistencies. And I know a lot of time when we're working on ourselves, we get caught up sometimes in trying to fix what's wrong and the areas that are we feel like we need the most help in, when sometimes it's really building on what you're actually already naturally geared towards. We can spend all the time in the world I can try to become a world-class swimmer. Like there's so many things I could do that I'm not strong at, but I could also spend my time in a more fulfilling way by just building on what I already have the foundations of at my core and being able to run with that versus always trying to find the thing that's wrong. Now, I'm not saying don't work on yourself if things are going. Work on yourself. You know what I'm saying? Definitely work on yourself. But what I'm encouraging is that, like, as you're going through these values and you're doing this self-assessment, don't stay just in what's not been working. Yes, that's important to know, but also pay attention to the things that have been working. The things that have benefited you, the things that have brought you joy, the things that have given other people joy by being able to experience that part of you.
Right.
Take all of that into account as you're building this list out, because some of the values that you're going to write down are going to be the things that you currently have, and some of those are the shift that you're going to. But if you're making a list and you're putting down the values that you don't currently have, but you want to rank higher, that means you've got to change up how you walk through this. But again, it's essentially an instruction booklet for how to navigate these bigger decisions. It's almost a simple decision tree of yes, no. Like if yes, this, if no, this. Like that's as simple as that breakdown is. Now, with that being simple in the idea, the application, of course, it's a whole other. It's a process, man. And that's why you got to be patient with it, right? You know, I feel like we've been working on it for a long time, so we understand it, you know, a little bit better, you know, but, you know, it's a never-ending learning process of who you are, what you stand for. It constantly changes over time as you grow and you mature, you elevate. I think it's important to remember where your values come from. When you do write down your values, just the ones that you have or the ones that you think you have, think about where you get them at, you know, because that's super important. A lot of us don't realize that our values come from something other than us, you know, and that's potentially how we get into, I think, awkward situations, uncomfortable positions. That's how we experience a lot of pain, depression,
You feel, sometimes you feel like a failure. You feel like you don't fit. You feel like you don't understand the world or where you're supposed to be in any given moment. And a lot of times that means your value system is not in alignment with who you actually are. It could be outdated because we grow up with different rules in our community, in our neighborhoods, in our homes, with our parents, with our friends, our siblings, even some of our teachers in school and counselors. It's so many. TV, internet, social media, music, art, fashion. I mean, it's so many different things that can make it difficult for you to pinpoint your own spirit, that it's important to, just kind of unwind and sit with yourself for a moment and take that deep dive inside your spirit, because that's where the true system is going to come from. A lot of people can't be you. You know what I mean? Typically, when your value system is in alignment where it's supposed to be, it's not going to make you like anybody. You won't be following anything outside of yourself and your connection to your spirit or God or the things that you believe in that move you forward. And so that's very, very important to consider and to remember. It is a process, but value system overhauls are necessary all the time, because we don't even know that we be carrying values that come from outdated spaces. Parents force value systems on their kids, and these kids are not from the 1960s.
Look,
Times have changed. Those systems don't work. You got to be willing to update, recreate, look at the current state of things, and make sure you make the proper adjustments, man. So just
that made me think about
what?
It's like when parents be giving, you done had a kid, for the people who wait a little bit, and let's say you have a kid in your late 20s, early 30s, and parents be giving parenting advice. And it's like, you ain't done this in decades.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You bringing up something you ain't did, and that's it's just interesting how that work. I think about how much information my parents thought they were giving me about stuff and being like, this is the now.
Right.
That don't apply. The way we go in and you telling me about how to get a job, go put applications in, it don't work how it was working.
Yeah, and it's like I deal with a lot, in the clothing store that I own. I deal with a lot of that.
Yeah.
Parents come in all the time with their children, and it's usually more the woman than the man. The man is like, hey, get whatever you like.
Yeah.
But typically the mom is like, no, I don't want you wearing those tight pants, or that's too big, or, it's like, and it's like, and I've learned, luckily I'm in the fashion business, so I know what the culture is doing a little bit. I know a little bit more about the younger culture, I think, than older cats that maybe don't do fashion for them.
For sure.
And so I get to see the patterns, and then I have to tell the parents, I say, look, lady, like this is the style. This is what they do, like this ain't the 1958 when you were in high school.
This ain't,
they don't wear pants that big anymore. You know what I mean? And they find it hard to adjust. It's like, you're not wearing them there. That's their style. That's their thing.
Yes.
When you were wearing bell bottoms, your parents told you not to wear those, but
the cycle always goes.
But and that's just basically why you have to just kind of update, recreate, make the adjustments, look at the times, figure out how you fit. To be successful in most capacities, internally you keep who you are and what you are, but you find a way to communicate that through the current times. And I think that's how you stay up to date, but also still stay authentic. And that's part of having the right value system at the right time in your life to get the right results.
Yes, Lord. One of the things I do want to do, I got a little list here of just reading off some stuff, and it's not a comprehensive, I'm not about to go through every bullet point, but just kind of touching on, these values may be a single word, it may be a phrase. So I'm going to just pop through some of these just to give it off. They've got leading and influencing people or policies, financial security, deep religious beliefs, being liked and appreciated by others, creativity. I feel like that's in my top 5.
Right.
Genius intelligence, great personal attractiveness, going back to vanity, right? The pursuit of knowledge, truth, understanding, close and loyal friends, a life of leisure, power and authority. Like some people, that is the move, right? Contributing to the betterment of the world, moral responsibility and fulfillment, satisfying family life with children, job satisfaction, or connected to ones in the community. And then I'm going to jump down here into the other list that are just single words, right? So we've got acceptance, alertness, commitment, empathy, enthusiasm. I mean, a lot of these words you've heard right here on this show, generosity, gratitude, pride, reliability, respect, simplicity, understanding, freedom. Again, and there's a ton of lists that exist on the interwebs. If you look up personal value lists, you'll find a ton of them out there. And I do encourage you to take some time to do that, because just being able to see things written out that you may not have had a word for, but as you're reading through this, you can start being like, oh, actually, that actually like aligns. I didn't necessarily think to call it that, right? Or lay it out this type of way, but it's definitely good in going through these exercises. Or it may be even going through there and it's like, what are the words that I think, and then compare those to once you actually do your breakdown of what have your patterns kind of shown, and being able to kind of use those next to each other to see, do these things show up? If it is courage, right? Like I just looked over here and you look back through a lot of your situation, you're like, yikes, I didn't speak up. Like there's a lot of times I feel like I should have spoke up and I didn't. And courage may be something that you seek and that you're wanting to get towards, but the history up to that point may not have shown that that's necessarily something that's of value. You may see that as a place you want to get to. So being able to kind of juxtapose those next to each other could be kind of informative. I think there's, just a ton of ways to go about this. And again, it's just figuring out foundationally as we keep having these conversations in these first few episodes around the whole idea of defining yourself individually. It's outside of who you are as a parent, who you are as a child, who you are as a partner, who you are as an employee, who you are as a business owner. Who are you if everything was stripped away and we just wanted to hear about your interests? We just wanted to hear about your plans, your goals, without anybody else of influence in there. And that's a lot harder a lot of times to answer than you would think. I think about some of the first few times of being asked, what do you do for fun? What do you like to do for fun? As simple as that is, it's like most things tie into some form of work almost. Like something that I do as a business, or, it ties into my leisure because there's so much overlap, right? In some of these, because I do get joy out of a lot of the things that I do outside of my 9 to 5. I mean, I get some joy in my 9 to 5. Don't say that I enjoy having a job, but I love having the money that comes with having the job. I need to make sure to be very specific when I lay that out, because the universe has a way of
sound like money's at the top of this value system to me, but no.
The means. It is the means.
Yeah, but defining yourself. I run a mentorship class for boys. Well, there are girls involved now. Finally, it took a while, but the boys I've been doing for almost 3 years now. It's called Definition of Success. And so part of it was I kind of based it off my life, and success is also a term I think that sometimes can be defined a little bit too loose, or with a major lack of clarity,
Don't go too deep on this, because this is a full topic.
Oh, it's another show.
This is a full topic to get into.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right.
But give him the cliff notes.
Yeah, I give you the cliff notes though. But basically, when I think about defining yourself and I think about your definition of success, I think the definition of success is how well you know yourself as it pertains to your space in this world. If you can understand that with some powerful clarity, intentionality, and transparency, I think you can create your experience the way you want it to be. Because the universe just don't respond to people who don't know for a fact who they are. They don't respond, Like the only people who really make waves is the ones who stand on that square loud and clear through words and actions, this is who I am. This is my value system. This is what I stand for. And I will not deviate outside of it for nothing. You know, and after doing that for so long, like the world has to open up to that. They might not want to, but they don't have a choice because there is a lot of, you know, a lot of charisma and attraction and people that know what they're here for.
Yeah.
That's why they become the most powerful, you know, leaders and influencers and brand owners and, you know, artists and whatever else, you know, but there's a lot of power in that. We don't get that. We don't get enough of those in the world as we need. Yeah. Which is why I think the world has gotten so confusing and why so many people have become at odds without actually even knowing each other, right? It's just a natural flow to be irritated by the fact that other people exist because I don't know me yet.
They're telling you how to feel.
You know what I'm saying? And so ultimately, and we know that creating a strong value system depends on how well you know yourself as it compares to this world and where you're headed. And then you create the boundaries based off of that. And so always think about, I go back to the pit of your stomach, back to that inner spirit, that thing that's actually you. You know when you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, and again, my philosophy is you get to a point to where you stop doing what's easy. I said this a little earlier. You stop doing what's easy, stop doing what's normal, stop doing what everyone else is doing, and you do what you know is right. You know, you do what you know is right at all costs. And I think that's the space that you get in when you start getting in more alignment and you take the decision away from yourself and you just do what feels right.
Yeah.
If we, you know, think about the kind of world we live in, if most people are doing what they feel is right. And I don't mean because it's easy, you know, because I give the example all the time. You gave it a little bit, you know, about money.
Mm-hmm.
I ask my students all the time, what do you think a bank robber feels in the pit of his stomach when he's got the gun and he's holding it up against the window or to the teller's face and demanding money? How do you think he feels in that moment? What is his stomach and spirit saying to him? It's saying you completely wrong and you're taking a huge risk and there's a big chance this ain't gonna go well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what they feel.
Yeah.
But the decision they make is theirs.
Yes.
And they do it anyway. You come outside, the cops is waiting on you. You know what I'm saying?
Come down.
You know what I mean? And so just think about that. You know, this is getting to the truth of yourself. You can't create the right value system or boundary system or standard system without knowing this part first. This part's going to take some work. It's going to take a lot of you sitting with you and being honest with yourself. Forget about everything else. Be honest with the way that you feel. And that's the beginning process, I think.
That's the pin. That's the pin in it right there. He closed that out perfectly.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I do want to touch before we get up out of here, I'll make sure when this does get up and put to the tubes of the use, throw a link in there for a couple of these resources. This joint that I was reading from right here actually came across. I'll put this PDF, and there's also another list of values that Brene Brown, shout out to Brene Brown. She does a lot of dope stuff around getting you to understand who you are at your core. And I'll throw that list on there also, or link to where you can get that list to be able to check some of that information out.
Yeah.
With that said, again, we're going to keep giving y'all the game on figuring out how to define yourself. This is going to be kind of like an unofficial series as we build everything off of these foundational pieces. So with that said,
and feel free to send us an email, right?
Oh,
you know, about the...
Yes. If you do go through these exercises or you've already done this, share some of that with us.
Yeah.
What are some of the values that you've figured out for yourself? Share those and share how you came to that and what you've like what things that have worked in your favor since defining that and staying in alignment with that value system that you created.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes, Lord.
So thank you. Calculated Conversation. Much love. We're going to continue to build, inspire, relate, whatever it takes to bring it together.